welcome to part 4. And I'm going to go ahead and start this off by saying the next 2 parts that you will be watching, if you do choose to watch them, are purely optional. They serve the purpose of giving you ideas and introducing you to concepts that could help make your development of the Discord bot that you're making be easier, possibly give you more ideas on how to make your bot more advanced and have more capabilities and more functionality. So these next 2 videos are just purely made to give you ideas. I do not suggest you just copy the code that you see or do anything like that. This is the kind of thing where you can just watch it, relax and watch, just to see what I'm doing and just listen and get ideas. Because there might be a couple concepts that you don't know about that could give you new ideas. This one is going to cover how to allow people to leave in the middle of the game and make it work. And the next one is going to cover how to make a currency or point system for your bot, which would give people more of an incentive to keep playing with your bot so they get more score and things of that nature. I'm the kind of person who thinks that programmers should be able to solve problems on their own and only seek help if they are truly stumped. So I don't want you to just copy off the code here. I think you are capable of making your own system when it comes to like currency, things like that, because it's fun. Honestly, I like making stuff like that, and I think you will enjoy it too. Anyway, so first thing before we get into the video, the nitty-gritty, I'm gonna go ahead and change this method right here because it is incredibly inefficient, and I do not like it. So let's go ahead and cut that out. What I'm going to do is string message. I'm going to go ahead and put message in here and do this instead. Now we're going to go over here and we're also going to change it to where it is called notify all. Either notify all or alert all. I think notify all is going to work fine. Now we're going to go ahead and use this. Call it, we're going to go up here, notify all, and we're going to use this string right here. Beautiful, that looks perfectly fine. I like how that's formatted. We can go ahead and do that. And then we're going to go over here, start message, we can go ahead and put game complete. Let me double check, make sure everything's okay, sorry. Just gotta make sure everything's fine. Everything looks A-okay, alright. And notify all. There we go, now it's a lot more efficient. Okay, so first things first. There's a concept that you need to know. Because, for instance, if you have a system where your game finds out what player's turn it is through like an integer, for instance, int player's turn is equal to 3, which means that the player's turn is currently 3, and then you can use players.get 3 or players.get player turn, something like that, right? That's how you can get a player's turn and know what turn it is. However, when you're trying to get someone to be able to leave the game, the player turn doesn't matter. So the question is, if you don't know what player is asking to leave the game, how do you know who to kick out of the game? Because, I mean, it's pretty simple enough. If you want to remove the person from the game, just do players.remove, and then you can get an index, like player 3 wants to leave the game. Now you can just remove the player, and they will be gone from the game. They will not be able to play anymore once this happens. And then you're done. Of course, I would recommend you to still clear the input just to be on the safe side. And of course, I would also recommend you notify all that someone just left the game. But the problem is that during a process loop, how do you know who's asking to leave the game? Because there is no clear pointer as to who is trying to leave the game right now. So how do you figure that out? Well, there's a simple way to figure this out, and I made sure that this was possible. So, first step is to realize that there's a little variable that you can use. Players dot, let's get the 0th entity, which is going to be the first player, dot you see there's a user variable right here, which is of type user entity. Let's go ahead and do this for a second. Of course we need to do this. So let's, for the time being, just get index for the time being. Let's go into open declaration. As you can see here, inside user entity, there is a variable named public string ID. And this is a public variable right here, which means there is no object. So you can get this ID. And of course, you can alter it if you want, because luckily, the user entity that you're accessing inside your game is not the same as the user entity that is within the lobby system. You're actually dealing with a copy of a user entity. In layman's terms, whatever you do to your user entity variable will not matter. However, I highly suggest you don't try to alter the ID anyways, because it might screw something up. But in the meantime, you can just get the user. Now with that in mind, there is an ID. You can use this ID, no problem. So how would you use this ID to figure out who's leaving? Well, what you can do is create a method named like private void check for leaving player. Let's say there's a method here. Now, this method is going to run every frame in the process, correct? Right. So, obviously, we're just going to have to loop through all the players. So, let's go ahead and do our normal everyday RPS player E players. Now, the first thing that we need to do is find out, actually, on second thought, come to think of it, let's do this a little differently, for the sake of making it easier. RPS player entity. Let's go ahead and get the entity of the player. So let's go ahead and compare. First of all, entity dot controller dot get input. Let's say we need to compare. Let's see if it equals ignore case. If it equals leave, for instance. Let's say if this is true, we want the player to leave. Here's the problem right now. We've done this, no problem, and we can go ahead and notify all a player has left the game, right? Now, here's the big problem right now with that. How do we know who just left? I mean, we could compare the objects, and this should work, just comparing the objects because the ID is there, which you can do. But I don't recommend you try and compare objects, because that actually uses more resources than to simply compare IDs. Because of course, RPS player, it's going to have a bunch of different variables. So comparing these objects might use more resources than just simply compare strings. So instead of trying to use objects to compare to see, hey, are these the same objects, we can do this. We can find out what player it is by doing a basic for loop through players. For int I is equal to 0, we're going to be using a traditional for loop, which is I dot players dot size, and then I plus plus. Now, the thing we're going to do is we're going to get players, if players dot get I dot user dot ID dot equals entity dot user dot ID, then we can go ahead and run this code where we not only remove players dot remove I, we also then break out of the loop and finish that off. And now we're done. That's it. We have taken care of it by getting the ID. And this allows players to leave, no problem. Now players can leave your game. However, there's some IDs you need to keep in mind. Just because you remove the player does not mean it's all fun, it's all easy now. There's some games where a player leaving could cause a problem. For instance, if you do have a game where the player's turn is decided by a variable, what happens if it's that player's current turn and he leaves the game? Well, the variable does not change. So, unless you change the variable somehow, it could result in a array index out of bounds exception, which means your index is out of bounds of the actual array, which means it will crash. Well, not crash, but that thread will crash. And if a thread crashes, that could mean the game just ends abruptly for no reason at all, and of course it prints out an error into your console. So you need a way to figure this out. Either one, you can change the variable to loop back over to what player's turn it is. And let's say, for instance, you need the player variable to change. Instead of, like, say, for instance, you have 5 players. Whoa. That was a weird lag spike. Is everything okay? Everything seems okay. Well, that was weird. Anyways, let's say you're trying to loop, like, find out what player's turn it is. And let's say we have int player is equal to 3. Let's say you can have a maximum of 4 players. Instead of making a revolver function, private void change player, let's say instead of revolver where if player is equal to 4, then you change it over to player is equal to 0, right? If plus player is equal to 4, then you change it to 0. There you go, you're done. Or if you do player plus plus, which means the player will just be set to 4, or whatever, and then you're done. So, there you go. Now you can do that, no problem, and everything's a-okay. Except it's not. Because if someone leaves the game, well, at that point, your array will be the size of 3 instead of the size of 4, which means the next time it tries to grab player 4, suddenly it's over, and the game crashes. So instead what you want to do is, if you're revolving a variable to get the player, you want to do players.size instead. That way it knows how many players are inside the game right now. And that will help fix that problem. Otherwise you're going to get an array index out of bounds exception, which is not fun. Anyways, let's delete this. So that's how you can remove a person from the game, and that is taken care of, and everything is a-okay now. Now, there is an extra thing you should know, that when a player does leave the game, when they leave the game, their game status is not updated until this game completely ends. The complete full game ends. It doesn't change this person's value until then. This is on purpose. If you look at the lobby manual here, by clicking here, I tried to join a game, but it sent me this document instead. This is intentional. There are 2 reasons why you cannot join a game right now. Reason 1, you're already in a game. Of course you can't. I don't want you to join multiple games at once because this is an anti-spam measure. Now, you left in the middle of a running game. The lobby system that this bot uses is designed to keep track of any players who are in a game. When a game ends, the lobby system will set your in-game flag to false. This way you can join a new game. However, if the bot designer decided to allow users to leave in the middle of a game, this lobby system will not set your in-game flag until the game you left is finished. This is done on purpose. It'll serve as a cooldown for however long the game will last. Leaving games will be frustrating to other players because it oftentimes disrupts the flow of the game you're originally playing. This cooldown should not very last very long. Try again, about 3 minutes, blah blah blah. So that's why I did it like that. So, alright, another thing I should mention. You should not allow every single game have the function of players being able to leave. Because let's say, for instance, a game would not work without the maximum amount of players. If you want players to be able to leave the game in the middle of it, I would suggest you end the game completely if someone leaves. and like give a message saying this game ended because this person left, and then run the status equal to game complete, and then this right here, just do that. There you go, you're done. Now, and for instance, if there's only 2 people, like for instance with this rock paper scissors game, if there's only 2 players, someone leaving, well, at that point you should just end the game if someone leaves, and maybe even award them with whatever currency you're giving them, and they'll be taken care of then and there. Or, of course, you can make it to where they cannot leave, and instead just allow the other person to report if someone's AFK, and they're still stuck in the game doing nothing. Again, all of this is up to you, and this is all just a concept of what this could work and how it could be like. Hopefully all of this gives you ideas on how to make someone leave, and gives you some pointers on how this stuff works. In the next episode, which is in the last episode, we're going to be covering how you could possibly make a currency system, because I'm sure some of you would like to have that functionality in your bot. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day.